John's on Facebook. He has a question regarding playing instruments in church. Is it okay to play or use instruments in church?
When you're talking about, for example, in the Old Testament, there was a whole group of people that David lined out for instrumental worship. There's a passage in Psalms. Gosh, is it Psalm 29? You know what? I'm going to sit here and look around for it. Let me just look it up real quick. It might be Psalm 133. Nope, it's Psalm 33. Praise the Lord with a harp, make melody with him, to him with an instrument of 10 strings. Psalm 92:3, on an instrument of 10 strings, on the lute, on the harp with harmonious sound, talking about praising the Lord. Psalm 144:9, I will sing a new song to you, O God, on a harp of 10 strings. I will sing praises to you. And so you have this use of instruments all the way through temple worship, and that's obviously something that's going to go on into New Testament too. When you look at Ephesians chapter 5, let's do that one. Ephesians chapter 5, speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord. There are some people who believe that Psalms is talking about songs that are accompanied by music. That literally, that's what the term means. And so, yeah, you have this in the Bible. And if you run into somebody who says, well, the instruments are in the Old Testament, they're not mentioned in the New Testament. Well, when you get to heaven, guys have harps. And so, what's that about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trumpets.
Yeah, trumpets. Yeah, those kinds of things. And but specifically harps, and obviously those are for worship. And so, if there are instruments used in heaven, then why would we not use instruments here on earth? Plus, if you ever run into somebody who goes, that's Old Testament, you have somebody who's running from the truth, because everything that's in the Old Testament is something that's reiterated in the New Testament. 3/4 of the New Testament is Old Testament. And so you never want to be a person who says, well, that's Old Testament. And so you have to watch out for that. There's a group of churches, the Church of Christ, who says that it's unspiritual to use instruments in worship. And that's not, it's one of those things that churches divide over that I think is rather silly, because again, you have it in the Bible. So.
It's funny how churches, different denominations too, will stick to their rituals, and you see the progression where it used to be the organ.
Right.
How dare we have the piano?
Right. Yeah.
How dare we have the guitar?
Right.
And the evolution that we've had in the worship music, but we're stuck in this is the biblical way to worship,
right,
without really a proof text behind it.
Yeah. And
the next generation that comes in goes, well, I want to worship this way. Yeah. That's of the devil.
Right. Yeah. You can't have 4/4 time.
Is there I don't know the answer to this. Is it any church history with them using instruments in their worship in the early church and moving forward? Time of Paul, or?
You know what? Usually, we don't know a whole lot about how worship was going during the time of the apostles specifically. When you move down through church history, a lot of the worship was done by choirs. That's where we got the whole idea of choirs. And so we didn't do congregational worship until Martin Luther.
Really?
Actually, yeah. Martin Luther is the one who brought in congregational worship. And I believe he's the one who brought in the organ.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I believe he is. And then the organ became a staple for a long time, and then, like you said, pianos. And I was around during the time when they started going to guitars, and people were like, oh, that's of the devil, Drums was huge. Bringing drums into a worship service was like, no.
All right, thanks for posting, John. Hopefully that answers your question there.